We begin our story with a young man named Scott Ross. He came from a small town in Buffalo, New York, and was raised by a very religious family. In high school, he found out he liked boys instead of girls and was shunned by his family. His parents decided to stop supporting him once he was ready to go to college. To help cope with his sadness from being isolated from his family, Disney was Scott's escape from his sadness. His dream was to go to UCF and eventually work in Disney. He decided to make his dream a reality when he got accepted to UCF and moved to Orlando with his own money.
At this time in Scott's life, he had just gotten hired at the Caribbean Resort in Walt Disney World. He had a $4,200 balance on his visa with a 26.6% APR. Scott decided to rethink his budget and became more aware of what he spent his money on. Scott decided to do research online to see how he could pay off his debt, and with his research, he found that in order to pay off his debt within 2 years, he would have to pay $227 per month with an interest of $1,261 for the next 2 years. Scott decided to think about his budget and make some cuts. Since he worked at Disney, he didn't have to pay for a Disney annual pass anymore, so Scott was able to save $64 a month. And with his new job, he made a little bit more than he did at Publix. Scott meets a person named Adam at a food and wine festival in Epcot. They hit it off and start dating. Their first kiss was at Scott's favorite place, Disney. After dating for a year, Scott knew that he wanted to propose to Adam. Since he believed Disney brought them together, he wanted to mirror that same magic. On their 1 year and 1 month anniversary, Scott decided to bring Adam to Magic Kingdom and reenact their first kiss. However, instead of kissing when the fireworks went off, Scott timed the fireworks show in time to propose to Adam. When the fireworks went off, that's when Scott bent down on one knee, proclaimed his love to Adam, and proposed. Adam couldn't hold his tears back and accepted his proposal. It was quite a magical evening. They moved in together to determine if the marriage would last, but also for cost reasons since Scott was in debt. In fact, Adam's apartment was closer to the Caribbean Resort and cheaper than Scott's old apartment. By being close to where they both were, they decided they only needed one car to get to the resort. Instead of Scott paying over $1,000 for rent, he only had to pay $484 because he split the rent with Adam. In a way, their cohabitation was not only a trial for marriage, but also an economic advantage for Scott since he was able to save money for rent. Scott finally felt like the universe was blessing him.
Scott and Adam's love for each other was strong from the beginning. From what we learned about the types of love, Scott and Adam displayed intimacy, passion, and commitment throughout their year-long relationship. They shared intimacy by moving in together and by being supportive to each other in their careers at Disney. They displayed passion by proudly showing PDA wherever they went. Finally, Scott displayed commitment by proposing to Adam a year after they started dating.
When their wedding finally rolled around, they married at the Orlando courthouse. Because of Scott's financial situation, they decided to keep their wedding very small. Unfortunately, because of their families' opposing views on gay marriage, Adam and Scott's family didn't attend their wedding. The only attendees at their courthouse wedding were their close friends Eve, Stacy, Brad, and James. They met at Disney. They didn't hire a photographer or cinematographer since they're tight on money. Instead, their friends took pictures and videos on their iPhones. The total cost to receive a marriage license in Florida is $61. After getting married at the courthouse, the two will stay in Disney's All-Star Music Resort for 3 nights at a rate of $50 a night because they're both Disney cast members and receive a discount. Their friends, Eve, Stacy, Brad, and James, met them at the resort along with 5 other friends of theirs at the resort to celebrate the union of Adam and Scott for the initial courthouse wedding, to eat dinner and cake. The two will spend Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at Disney to celebrate their marriage privately. The resort offers a food court option for $15 per person per meal. They ate their usual 3 meals for the 3 days. Adam and Scott wanted to enjoy their intimate time together rather than spend money on an extravagant wedding. However, Scott vowed to Adam that for their 10-year anniversary, they would have a more proper wedding while they renew their vows. Even though it wasn't an ideal Disney wedding, they were able to visit the parks during the wedding time for free since they were employees. They spent their first night and first day at Animal Kingdom, and then they spent their second night and second day at Epcot, since that's where they met. Their last day of their wedding weekend was spent at Magic Kingdom, where they shared their first kiss and where Scott proposed. James, who worked at Magic Kingdom, was able to hook them up with fast passes for no additional cost and allowed Adam and Scott to get the professional pictures for free.
Scott finally paying off his credit card debt brought their savings to $247 a month. Because they were married, Adam to the insurance. Scott decided to go ahead and sign up for the basic PPO medical coverage, Delta Care USA for dental, and the high vision coverage. Even though Scott and Adam loved the idea of having a family of their own someday, they decided to put it off because there was a pretty hefty cons that outweighed the pros of bringing in a child. Even getting a pet cat would have been a burden on their financial situation. As a final alternative, they decide to do occasional pet sitting throughout the month instead of babysitting. This way they can both continue their individual schedules, since an animal gives you the flexibility of leaving it home alone for some time when necessary. Getting insurance for Scott through Disney was one burden lifted off their shoulders, but they still both have a lot of growing up to do.
Scott and Adam finally finished paying off their debt, and they now make over $40,000 a year. Although they both agreed on waiting to adopt a child together, this hurt Adam's feelings, creating a lot of resentment between the two. This caused them to go to marriage counseling, as it is being covered through Disney benefits. Scott's younger sister Kayla, along with her daughter Melody, flew from Buffalo to Orlando to visit Scott and Adam. One night, Kayla is tragically killed in a car accident, and the couple becomes Melody's adoptive parents. This tragedy greatly affected the communication between Scott and Adam, since they now had to take care of a child. Since there was no female figure in the relationship, Scott and Adam tried their best to raise Melody. Scott decided to be the maternal parent and displayed a more nurturing nature to Melody, while Adam was the paternal parent, being more protective over Melody and allowed her to have more freedom. Their budget becomes tight as they now must pay off Kayla's funeral, and they now have additional expenses for Melody. They decided to continue living in the apartment complex, but they moved into a larger unit, being close enough to work and for Melody to attend public school. They'll continue to save money to buy a house soon and to prepare for a smooth transition for Melody.
After several years, Scott passed away. Melody presented the eulogy at the funeral, and her wisdom and maturity was impossible not to notice since the early days when Scott took her in as his own daughter after the passing of her mother.
Throughout this journey, we experienced and overcame many challenges. We were impacted by financial burdens, job transformation, moving to new living spaces, adaptation, disagreements, adoption, empty love tanks, and our final challenge was the toughest of them all. We had to say goodbye to our character, Scott Ross. His death was unexpected and a tragedy as he left behind his daughter, granddaughters, and cat. This challenge reminded us that life is short and we must communicate and show appreciation to those around us. After all, nothing in life will call upon us to be more courageous than facing the fact that it ends. But on the other side of heartbreak is wisdom. In Scott's relationship with Adam, the two battled common couple violence. Scott was very reluctant to start a family with Adam, even though that's what Adam's ambition was. He became verbally abusive to Adam and neglected his thoughts and feelings, causing distress in the relationship and in the family. They were unable to work through the violence. We would like to close our last words about Scott. Scott's journey taught us that life isn't an easy game to win. There are many challenges that we had to overcome. We learned that taking chances is what life is about, and if we follow our hearts, we can live a righteous life. Time has a wonderful way of showing us what really matters. Scott taught me to love a little harder always. When you act out of love, it will continue to flow. It's not a goodbye, but I will see you soon.